I'm delighted to welcome Claire Burgess from Soar Development, and you do some interesting stuff to help people develop. Claire, tell us about it. Welcome to the programme.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's work with I suppose people development is the big headline of what I do. I'm a psychologist by background. I'm an occupational psychologist, so that's the psychology of people at work. And I'm in training courses, do one-to-one coaching, do a lot around resilience and well-being alongside people working on their goals. And more recently, I've started to work working with horses when people come individually or as teams as well. And again, helping them to learn more about themselves as well as the well-being element of being around the horses. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell, I guess.
Very interesting. You've said a lot of things there, so we'll gradually unpick them. So, occupational psychology, that doesn't exactly roll off the tongue. It's not the kind of thing that you sit when you're 10 years old and say, "Oh, I want to be an occupational psychologist." So tell us how you got to that point.
Yeah, so I've always been kind of someone who likes helping other people to learn. I think my parents say that I would sit there with my younger sister. In fact, she would probably still say now that, you know, trying to get her to read a book and things like that. And so I felt a fairly natural evolution. I did my teacher training and went into teaching, and I loved it. But there was elements of it that, you know, for whatever reason, wasn't going to happen forever. And so I'd done psychology as well, and just really grabbed this idea about it's about people. Everything is about people, really. You know, whether it's about relationships or whether it's about mindset or it's about being effective, it all boils down to that. So I love it. And the masters that I did in occupational psychology is so much about different elements of the workplace, but I've really honed in on the coaching side and the working with individuals, and some things about working with leaders, about their mindset, but also about how they support others at work. But yeah, it fascinates me, and it still does, because I think so much that what we do comes down to actually us as people and how we see the world and how the people we interact with see the world, and all of that. So yeah, that's where I am, really. And yeah, I think there's lots of things you can do as an occupational psychologist, you know, recruitment and things like that too, but for me, it's all about helping people to be the best they can be, ultimately. And yeah, that's why I could. Yeah, psychology definitely is something I could talk about all day. Positive psychology is the latest version of that, that started to evolve. Which again it's looking at people being their best, but it's not about just being happy all the time or anything like that. But it's really thinking, you know, it's fighting against that human nature to be harsh on ourselves and actually to go, what am I good at? How can I do more of that? How can I really shine? How can I celebrate what I'm doing rather than beating myself up about what I didn't do, all of that. So the whole psychology underpinning has kind of gone on a bit of a evolution, which is great. I love it. I really do.
Brilliant. Me too. I could imagine we could talk. If we were meeting face to face, we'd have a very long coffee. I'm sure we would do. So the psychology side of things, as you say, permeate through everything that we do as human beings, you know, living, breathing every day. There's always reasons as to why we do things. So how did you get into working with horses then?
Oh, so that it kind of, the seed was planted a few years ago. So I love horses. I've always been around horses, riding. I've never had my own horse. I've never gone down that gone down that avenue. But when I stepped out into being a coach and I started to network with other coaches, and I met someone who'd recently qualified as an equine facilitated coach, I remember at the time thinking, oh my gosh, that just sounds like my ideal thing. But at the time I couldn't really figure out how that would work. I couldn't figure out how. I suppose I was fairly new in business, so I parked it. But you know, these seeds kind of germinate, don't they, as ideas. And then the pandemic came and there was a bit more time on my hands to go, right, let's explore this. So when there was a window when we were allowed in the pandemic, I explored it a bit more and went and did some training. Did some training with an organisation down in Glastonbury, actually, which was amazing. And then I've done some further training with an organisation. They were based in the US, but they've got quite a strong presence here. and just learn about, I mean, you kind of feel it when you're around horses, and anyone who is people, you know, we get drawn to horses. So many people say, oh, I love being around horses, or you go for a walk and you get drawn to the horse over the fence in the field, or that kind of thing. But being around them even more and really learning about how they can be, you know, they're so intuitive. And I was going to say how they can be good for us on so many levels, because they can. There's so much about, like, they've shown that our cortisol levels, like the element that causes stress, goes down when you're around horses, and just that touch, you know, being able to just touch a horse, groom a horse, something really simple like that, really reduces our stress levels. But also, I never appreciated how much you can learn from them. So it's things like what that brings up for you. Horses are in the present. They live in the moment. They don't care about what might have happened, you know, yesterday or 10 minutes ago, or what might happen tomorrow. They're like, right, here and now. So it's very much about what comes up for you in that interaction, in terms of, okay, why am I doing that, and how did they react, and how did I react when the horse did? You know, it's, you can sit in a classroom and you can learn so much, or you can learn things from other people, but actually in a field with a horse, when you've got that immediate feedback on what you're doing, it is incredible. It really is. And it's, the more I've done and the more practice I've done and the more I've learned about it, it's just been wow, it really has. And I've started now working with people, and it's just things which sound so simple, and it's really hard. I think a lot of people find it hard to get their head around it, because it's just, I had a fairly young girl who was part of a group, and she was talking about she wanted to work on confidence, and she was leading a horse, and she had a big cob, you know, ones with the really big feet, big horse. And she was leading a horse, and we were experimenting if she could change her, she just changed her pace, so the horse just paced a bit quicker and then slowed down, and then she stopped and the horse stopped, and she was, oh, wow, I did that. And the sense of achievement and how proud she was, something which seems so tiny, really. And it felt that she had that, oh yeah, if I can do that, I can tackle that, right, this great big animal. And actually I've got there. It's that kind of learning that I think it almost, you know, fast forward anything that you might try and do through, like if I was doing a one-to-one coaching session with her or something like that, for example. So yeah, that's how it all came about, really, which it's an interesting, I don't like the word journey, but it's been an interesting journey so far. And like I say, I learn more and more every time, which is amazing.
I never cease to be amazed at people using animals with coaching, because, as you say, they're intuitive, and they pick up, don't they, on the sensations, the feelings, the emotions, the reactions, and so on and so forth. I remember when I first started doing the podcast a few years ago, it just happened like this, that within a month I interviewed two ladies in different countries, and they were horse ranch people, and they hosted retreats, and people came to the retreat. There was no horse riding as such, but like you say, but the horses chose who they worked with. So the group of people and the horses would select the people rather than the other way around. Very interesting.
Yeah. It really is. Yeah.
I believe you do mostly work with women. Is there any particular reason for that?
Yeah, it's there is, because when I started off, and you kind of try and find your target audience, I suppose, or your people that you love working with. My initial focus was I wanted to work with mums. I started my business 7 years ago, so my children would have been 3 and 5 at the time, and really felt that, you know, especially mums of young children have got so much going on, but actually always put themselves last, and there's so much about having to manage lots of different things. But that very quickly evolved actually to focusing on women wherever they're at, really. It doesn't have to be mums actually at any stage. And I really passionately believe, and you know, I am not saying that there won't be men listening to this potentially who are like, oh, hang on, I feel like that. But for me, this is my focus. You know, most of the time, women, we've got lots of things we are having to kind of split ourselves, having to juggle, I guess, the well overused word. but also we often, not everybody, but we often will have quite a limiting mindset with how we see ourselves and how we put ourselves out there to the world. And I just have found over time that when I work with women, I do quite a lot of work with groups of women. And firstly, they say that they love being with a group of other women where they can be quite open and they can acknowledge other things that are going on. But also, to me, it doesn't take much, because actually just having that little bit of time to go, right, let's stop and focus on you and think about you. I started off, because of my background in teaching, I did a lot of work with female teachers. There was a big push a few years ago by the government for equality and diversity in schools. And what a lot of pretty much all of the female teachers were saying is that they never ever focus on them. They always focus on the curriculum and their topic. And it's very much the same like with business owners or with leaders. They'll focus on what's their objectives, what do they need to get done. But it's like, but what about you? What are your goals? What do you need to work on? Maybe what are your barriers? What are your strengths? You know, we're very good as women of being able to jot down all the stuff that we're not so good at and that we need to work on, but actually helping people and having that positive psychology focus about, well, what are you good at? And actually about how can you do that a little bit more? And I find just a small, I say just, but it is to me, you know, something that's quite a small amount of time maybe, to focus on actually setting some goals when they may never have set personal goals before. And it has a massive, massive impact. Because they say that, gosh, now I've had a chance to think about my career and I know that I want to focus on that, and I focus on that, and all of a sudden the next step happens. I had someone recently I've been working with as part of a development program who said herself, you know, she's in her 50s and hasn't ever really, has just kind of drifted from one job to the next. We did a session on goal setting and she sent me an email recently going, oh my goodness, this goal setting thing works. I've now got a promotion. I'm earning 7,000 more when I've been on the same salary for the last 30 years. And I think, you know, I wouldn't want to say, oh, that's me, but actually what it is giving people that time. And like I said, I totally appreciate a lot of men would benefit from that too. But for me, women are not as good at it, at going, right, this is my ring fence time to think about me. I'm going to focus on me. Because so much of the time we're focusing on everything else that's going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
With men, I suppose in days gone by, they'd leave the office, meet their mates at the pub, have a pint or two to wind down, have a natter, then get home and kick the dog sort of thing. Whereas the women have not traditionally had that escapism, as it were. It's just from one thing to the other, to the other, to the other, and the woman gets lost. Yeah. Tell us about your link with what do they call it? I want to say abuse, but that's not the right word. The women that you help in hospital. You take over. I don't know. I can't think of the word.
Domestic abuse. You're right.
Yes,
yeah. So that's been a recent thing that I've started this year. That's a great combination of these two worlds coming together. So it's a group of women who have experienced domestic abuse, and some of them are currently in a refuge, some of them are have gone now in the community, but it's through a local charity. And what we've been doing is working with small groups of them with the horses and getting them to come. And it's not therapy, because we're not therapists, and we make it very clear. It's about forward looking and maybe thinking about them and their goals and what they might want. So they come for let's do a half day at a time. With the charity I work with has had some lottery funding for that, which has been great. And it's about just taking them out of that situation, taking them out for a little bit and saying, right, this is the time for you. You don't have to think about anything else. And firstly, the well-being element. So we take it very gently. It's about being around the horses. It's about that, having that time and space to be outdoors. You know, we all know the benefits of being outdoors. We all know the benefits of being around animals. And then just getting them to think about some elements that they might want to reflect on. And last time, actually, it was our first session with a new group, and what they were doing was they were leading a horse, and they were just having some free leading, just walking around, just seeing what came up. And it's things like, one of the women was, because there's me and another facilitator, and we help them to just, I keep saying just, we help them to explore what's coming up for them. And one of the ladies, the horse he kept putting his head over the edge and trying to get to the grass, and then putting his head over, and she was getting a bit kind of. But actually what she was reflecting on was, she said, gosh, this is really making me think. I do struggle with my boundaries. I do struggle with, and the horse was, so actually she could explore, right, what could I do? What could I do to make it really clear to the horse, not being rough, but what could I do to go, right, no, this is the fence. You don't put your head over there and eat the grass. I want you to come this way. And she had, oh gosh, yeah, this is what I need to focus on. This is, and talking about boundaries with one of her children, who I think have been pushing it a little bit. And then there was another one of the ladies who, the horse walked a little bit and then stopped completely still. And she said, can't get the horse to move. Can't get the horse to move. And we were like, in fact, it was my co-facilitator was talking to her, and rather than saying, okay, well, this is how you do it, like, okay, right, what might be going on right here? And she was like, oh, she said, and she just had she got quite emotional actually, but in a positive way, because she said, I don't ever stop, and just have a moment. And I think maybe what the horse is doing is going, let's just stop.
Yeah.
And it was things like that we never know what's going to come up, because it's experiential and you see what happens, but they all love it and get lots of benefit from it. And what I'm really keen to do is firstly work with some more charities, actually, so work with some more groups like that if possible, but also explore, okay, maybe how can groups of women come along and work with the horses who, similar to the women's development element, because I do think everybody really could benefit from it. It's funny because I notice what's going on in my head when I'm telling you those examples, is thinking, it sounds a bit like witchcraft, it sounds a bit kind of out there, but I also know that you would get that.
Absolutely, I think it's fabulous. Yeah. Absolutely fabulous. So how do people get hold of you, Claire? Anybody who wants to hire you as a coach and wellbeing and personal development, etc., or interested in exploring more with the horses?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, but also my website is Soar Development, so soar-development.co.uk. There's lots of information on there about the work with the horses and how that works and different options that are available. As I said, I'm like exploring how it's evolving. I've been doing some work with teams, so people come along who are teams and want to spend some time exploring how they can be more effective as a team and what they can learn from the horses. But I'm also evolving this idea, like I say, of working with women as well as the charity side as well. So yeah, so there's lots of information on there. There's lots of nice horse pictures as well from what we've done, and very soon there'll be uploads of videos and elements from what we're doing too. And I've also got it's probably too close to when this is going to go out, but I've got a couple of taster days coming up, and there will likely to be some more taster days as well going on through the year, so people can come and experience.
Brilliant. So HR departments, HR people who are in training departments would be good contacts for you then to link with.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. So people who have got maybe teams who work within their organisation who think, yeah, I want to do something a bit different, who are quite open-minded to something that's quite exploratory. I mean, we can have set outcomes. We might want to work on things like communication or leadership or team synergy, things like that. But also people who might have an eye on well-being. There's lots of talk around people's well-being still not being where we want it to be, especially post-pandemic. So I say that the opportunity of, if people have got well-being as something that's really important on their agenda, then yeah, I think, like I say, whether that's within HR or learning and development or that kind of area, I think that's really key. Yeah, that would be the main thing.
Wonderful. It's been lovely hearing your little stories, but also seeing your passion, Claire, because when people are so passionate, you can't help but light up as you speak about things, and it's definitely all over you, inside and out. So thank you so much, Claire Burgess of soar-development.co.uk. Thank you.
Thank you.